Now, having already covered a portion of their story earlier and the crossovers in the other character arcs, I'm going to try to dissect this story by picking out the key moments. This song and dance between the two started right from the get-go. The gang are chilling, having coffee, when Rachel runs in, having escaped her wedding. Monica immediately notices her and introduces her to the group, with Ross managing to fumble his introduction. They both had rough times recently, with him recently getting divorced and her walking out on her wedding day. There's a musical interlude showing the two of them sad about their recent love lives, which was setting the tone, and by the end of the episode, Ross asks Rachel out, which she agrees to at some point in the future. Ross ends up happy, saying that he's grabbed a spoon. Now, what was to follow was the most long-winded, ridiculous love roller coaster ever. Time and time again, there were close calls, but nothing materialized due to tons of obstacles. Rachel hooking up with Pablo, the Italian guy, then later hooking up with her ex Barry. Rachel then receives an expensive gift from Ross, from when it's accidentally revealed by Chandler that Ross has feelings for Rachel. Excited by this, she goes on to meet Ross at the airport, coming from his trip to China, from where he has unfortunately met a new girl named Julie. Ross, you dumb idiot. Now it's Rachel's turn to deal with all the heartache in many funny ways. D-Day comes when Rachel has left a drunken message on the phone revealing that she's over him, to which he hears, and cue the funny and awkward back and forth between the two, which led to the big kiss. Just as it seems the two are together, it all ends abruptly the next episode when Rachel sees a list that Ross made of the pros and cons between her and Julie, and it doesn't paint her in a particular good light. Now upset by this, she breaks it all off despite Ross's efforts. The next few episodes sees some attempts, but nothing happens as Rachel is still upset. And then there was the episode, the one from the prom video, which I was talking about earlier, to which at long last they got together. The next episode brings more funny and awkward moments, with the two of them getting comfy around each other before finally being able to consummate the relationship. And so for the remainder of season 2 up until mid-season 3, we get to enjoy the relationship in all its cute and quirky glory. Until the breakup. Ross becomes jealous of Rachel's new male friend Mark, which creates a lot of tension, which leads to the two having a big fight. Ross manages to make things even worse by sleeping with a woman at a bar, just as Rachel wants things to be well with them. Despite trying to keep the one night stand a secret, it's unfortunately revealed to Rachel by bloody Gunther. Rest in peace, James Taylor. This leads to one of the most emotional and heartbreaking scenes of the whole series. But as it was still true love between the two, there were glimpses of the two of them getting back together, until Ross meets a new woman, Bonnie, and Rachel's jealousy rears its ugly head again, and she even manages to get Bonnie to shave her head bald, much to Ross's disgust. The two have a moment, and the show is left on the season 3 cliffhanger. Fast forward to season 4, and it appears that the two have gotten back together again until Ross reads the letter given to him, this time by Rachel, to accept 100% responsibility for the relationship going wrong. To which he hilariously tries to accept, but finally breaks with the infamous line, "We were on a break!" And this time they break up properly. The rest of the season saw a lot of funny back and forth between the two, and looked like the relationship was pretty much done and dusted. Enter Emily, a new girl Ross meets, and a whirlwind romance sees them getting engaged, much to Rachel's dismay, despite her pretending to be fine with it. Ross plans his wedding to take place in Emily's home country in the UK, in London, where he invites the whole group minus Phoebe, who can't travel due to her pregnancy. Rachel declines and the wedding goes ahead, until she decides that she's still in love with Ross and flies out to London to tell him, only to arrive too late on the scene. The wedding goes ahead and it seems it's finally game over. Until...
I, Ross,
I, Ross,
Take thee, Emily.
Take thee, Rachel.
Boom! Another chance is born, and Emily shows her own jealous side, and despite being married, is absolutely furious with Ross. Rachel reveals to Ross anyway how she feels, and the two come to a head when they agree that they'll always love each other, but as he's married, it's time for them to move on. Ross ends up suffering a second divorce as Emily no longer trusts him, and that ends his relationship with her. But then the story arc shifted onto the others, and Ross and Rachel took a back seat up until the season 5 finale, when after a drunken night in Vegas, Ross and Rachel got married. Only in Vegas. Come the start of season 6, the two wake up with no recollection of the night before until they regather their thoughts and they discover that they're married. Having had 2 divorces, Ross decides to stupidly talk Rachel into letting it be, to which she says no, and they both agree to get an annulment. Ross doesn't go through with it and hides the fact that they are still married. Rachel eventually discovers this and angrily gets into it with him. After failing to get the annulment as they didn't qualify, they end up having to get a divorce. Are you guys still with me? God, this is a long ride, man. They do end up on a good note and they continue to be friends. And as far as Rachel and Ross go, it's just friendly banter between the two of them for the rest of that season, until the final shot of the finale when it's discovered that someone is pregnant. It appears to be Monica at first, but it was Rachel. But how? And with who? Segue to season 8. After some shenanigans from Phoebe and Monica about the pregnancy, Rachel comes clean about her pregnancy and doesn't reveal the father yet. Following the case of the missing sweater, the father is revealed to be Ross.
What?
Turns out that they had a one-night stand before Chandler and Monica's wedding. Ross, being Ross, doesn't take the news well initially and acts like, well, Ross. He comes around and meets Rachel at the hospital where she's getting checked and agrees to be there for her and her baby. There's a funny and touching moment where Rachel can't see the baby on the scan until Ross points out to her, and it looks like it's the beginning of them rekindling their relationship. It didn't quite go that way. Having moved in with Joey, who's developed feelings for her, Rachel moves in with Ross to raise the baby together. Moving forward to the end of season 8, Rachel's water has broken and it's looking more and more likely that Ross and Rachel will get back together following the birth of baby Emma. The two share a great moment together. It's unfortunately ruined when Ross gets cold feet, leaving Rachel disappointed and scared that she's going to be raising Emma all by herself. Ross is given an engagement ring for Rachel by his mum, to which he is not quite ready for. Joey walks in to comfort Rachel, but ends up accidentally picking up the ring whilst on one knee. Rachel, seeing this, says yes. Oh, damn it, Joey, damn it. I've already covered the Ross and Rachel falling out again and moving back with Joey this time, with baby Emma in tow. I've also mentioned the love triangle arc involving the three, so I'll skip ahead to after Rachel and Joey go back to just being friends. Things between Ross and Rachel are mostly quiet until the episode, when Rachel's dad suffers a heart attack and Ross comes with Rachel to Long Island to comfort her. They have a moment and Rachel tries to sleep with Ross, to which he rejects, saying he wouldn't want to take advantage. Rachel rebuffs this saying by saying, just do it when a girl needs comfort sex. It looks like it's off the table by the end of the episode until Rachel says, with the two of them, it's never off the table. Are you still with me? We're almost at the end of this roller coaster. Rachel loses her job but runs into Mark from season 3, who helps in getting her a new job, which just happens to be in Paris. Ross is devastated as it means Rachel will no longer be in his life. In desperation, he tries to stop her by convincing her old boss to take her back. Rachel decides that she will go to Paris anyway as she's ready for a new challenge in life. Ross accepts this and is ready to let her go so he can move on without her. Rachel then bids a tearful goodbye to the group minus Ross, who's left angry by this, and then he confronts Rachel about it. She later tells him she left him out as saying goodbye to him would be the hardest thing to do, and the two end up kissing and then they end up sleeping together, in typical Ross and Rachel fashion. Ross believes that this was going to change her mind about going to Paris, but to her, it was just the perfect closure to their relationship. Devastated, he bids her goodbye, but he has a last-minute change of heart and wants to win her back. With the aid of Phoebe, he speeds down the airport only for them to realize she's at a different airport, and it looks like it's finally done and dusted. Except with friends like Phoebe, always expect the unexpected. She manages to phone Rachel while she's boarding the plane and says that there's something wrong with the left phalange, because it's a well-known fact that those are real parts of an aeroplane. Jeez. A passenger overhears and sends the whole flight into a funny panic, which delays the flight. Ross finally catches up to Rachel and tells her he loves her and wants her to stay. She says no and heads back on the flight. Surely now this was the final end to this love story. No, not quite. Ross comes home completely destroyed emotionally. He finds a message of Rachel apologizing and then saying that she's in love with him too. And then the panic ensues, and then she tries to get off the plane. Ross is up in arms and wants to know if she got off the plane. She got off the plane. The two embrace and finally get back together. Of course, Ross being Ross just had to get in that very stupid line.
This is it. Unless we're on a break.
Oh, Ross. Finally. After 7 seasons, the two were finally back together again for good, and just in time for the final episode of the whole series. Well, and with that is the whole ensemble covered with all their major story arcs. Friends is such a vast show with its 10-year run that there is so much more that I'd like to cover. One subject in particular is the controversy involving sitcom Living Single. On top of that, it's the recent reunion special which brought back the cast for a one-off special. But all of that will be saved for a later date on the channel. There can be no doubt the impact of the show, and it has rightly cemented its place in TV history as one of the most entertaining sitcoms of all time.